All right, well, thank you so much. I am here with Guy Williams today, and I am interviewing some folks that have been in the business less than 3 years and have found some success. So we are going to get a lot of great insight from Guy today, and we're just going to kick it right off with, tell us a little bit about your background, why you chose real estate, how long you've been in real estate, where you're selling, and what your location is and what company you're with.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Holly. So I am here in the Villages, Florida. I work with Remax Premier Realty in the Villages and surrounding areas. I've been selling in Central Florida going on about 2 years now. Yeah, and I came into real estate kind of serendipitously. I've always had an interest in real estate. My father was a custom home builder, so I grew up on job sites, watching him interact with clients, and I think there's a lot of continuity there between home building and home sales. The whole relationship centers on trust, and my dad was the kind of person that could build a relationship with someone very quickly. I think that's, so it's kind of in my DNA. The way I actually came into real estate, I had just, we can get into this in more detail, but I had just sold my first company that I started in grad school and was transitioning out of that, kind of looking for what I wanted to do next, when my brother-in-law, who's my business partner here at Remax, reached out to me and said, "Hey, we're doing really well in the Villages. You should consider getting your license and moving down here." So within 2 weeks, I moved across the state, got my license, and started selling.
Wow. So grad school, already had a company. So it sounds like, growing up with your dad being a home builder, you already had a pretty strong entrepreneurial spirit, is what I'm gathering.
Yes, very strong. My graduate school advisor actually advised me to drop out of a PhD program because I was so business oriented.
I love it. So what was your
Yeah.
prior business, if you don't mind sharing, that you sold?
Yeah, so I started a company, like I said, when I was working on my master's. I was studying theoretical linguistics, which is a
Wow.
very, very technical subject. And I started a business doing copy editing and copywriting, mostly for companies overseas.
Wow. Did you have
Yeah.
employees? Was it something you were just doing as a solopreneur, or how did that look?
Yeah, it started off on my own. I actually started off helping speakers of foreign languages rewrite their dissertations and theses. And I was charging per word, so I was making pretty good money doing it.
Wow.
And found, kind of thought my way through, okay, how can I go about contracting this out and still, collecting a portion of the payment. And at the height of things, I had 27 contractors working with me.
Wow. So
Yeah.
there's so much that goes into, starting a business. And I do tend to think, after 21 years in this business, that folks that are already coming from a business and understanding, that the sky's the limit when it comes to income, on being your own business owner, and how many different hats you have to wear, I think it's just a huge advantage. When you're coming from a job where you're being paid for time, which we're not paid for time in real estate, it's quite a big shift. So I would just venture to say that probably helped you so much in your mindset when you first got into real estate. Do you feel that was like a big skill that came, from that? Or what are some of the skills that you feel like from that, this really helped me transition in real estate?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think some people are born with, I don't know if it's so much conditioned, but I think some people are born with like the entrepreneurial tendency. They're more prone to risk taking, for lack of a better word. I think the biggest thing, in real estate, you own your own business. So like you said, having come from a business background where I was running the show, I had learned, to defer. There's a psychological term for when you defer the reward as far as possible.
Oh, Darren Hardy talks a lot about that, and it's
Yeah,
gosh, what is it? I know what you're talking about. That's a great.
I must not have had enough coffee today, but
Yeah, we'll think of it, and if we don't, I'll try to add it in.
that's right. Yeah. So in a W-2 job where you're getting paid a salary or hourly, you get used to that biweekly or monthly paycheck coming in. But when you run the show, and if you don't sell, you don't eat, then it really boils down to the gumption and the discipline. So I think there's some things, a few kind of traits that have served me well in real estate. I'm very attentive to detail.
Mhm.
That's a really big thing that you need when you're running a business, and dealing with people. I have a passion for learning. Obviously, I mean, I was in graduate school, kind of climbing up the academic ladder. And if you're going to improve your business, you need to first improve yourself. And so a passion for learning is really big. And then, having owned a business before, I think I really, really learned the importance of empathy. I think that would be one of the biggest things. That's a requirement when you're working with customers in any capacity.
I love that. And, Momentum through Remax has just come out with the emotional intelligence
Mhm.
course. And I think that ties, perfectly in with what you said. And then when you talked about your dad too, and how, it was about relationships and, making those connections with people and working by referral. I'm a big Buffini fan, and
Yep.
I'm really committed to exceeding people's expectations. So I'm sure that's a big driver of your business. Could you maybe spend a little bit of time and telling people where your business is coming from and what strategies you were able to put in place in 2 years? And we'll talk about your volume a little bit later.
Mhm. Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I had going for me is I joined a high volume team. Um, Not everyone has the personality to work with team members. And especially when you're getting started, many times you kind of want to do your own thing, thinking you'll make more money that way. But I had the benefit of working with a very successful team that kind of mentored me and showed me the ropes very early on. So I was able to get, my feet on the ground very quickly. Um, yeah, strategies. I mean, my biggest source of leads so far over the last 2 years has been referrals. And it's by far, I mean, it's over 70% of what I do.
Wow, I love
Um,
that. So tell us
so
a
I
little
focus.
bit of what that looks like, how you stay connected, what are your activities for working by referral, not waiting by referral?
Yes, yes, you definitely have to nurture referrals. The first thing is you have to go above and beyond during that transaction process. Whether you're working with a seller or a buyer, I try to touch base with my sellers at least once a day. I talk to buyers 2 to 3 times a week, depending on where they are in their process. So I think just being available is huge. When I take a shower, my phone's on the vanity. I'm ready to pick up the phone if I get a call in the middle of the shower. Some people might say it's a little excessive, but that's one of the things that set me apart. I'm always reachable. Um, and then, after the transaction is complete, just reminding people, I'm still your realtor. I'm still here for you. Um, I've got connections if you ever need recommendations for contractors or anything like that. And people reach out, and when you give them that information, you give them that assistance above and beyond the transaction. After you've been paid, that really stands out. And so I have customers that have referred $3-4 million in business to me.
Wow,
Just one customer, yeah. So
that's awesome.
yeah, going above and beyond, and then just staying in touch with people. If you randomly think of a client, text them. Hey, I was just randomly thinking of you. How are you doing? Are you getting settled in all right? Do you have any issues? Um, that goes a long way.
Do you have kind of a system that you follow? Or are you more of, I make a point of 30 to 40 minutes a day, maybe some, lead generation, then I do some lead conversion, then client care. Do you have it broken up into a system, or how does your days kind of play out?
Yeah, I kind of try to balance between lead generation, nurturing leads or converting leads, and then client care, I guess you would call it. Uh, and I have a very simple, very rudimentary system for tracking all that. I focus more on input than output.
Mhm.
So all my input goes on a Google Calendar. I mean, I block off 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the evening to make phone calls. And then generally the rest of my day is full of appointments. And then on the output end, I'm a firm believer you don't really need a fancy CRM system. I know a lot of agents spend thousands of dollars a month on very highly analytical software, but if you look at what they're doing, they're not producing a whole lot of business. So I track all my output on a Google spreadsheet. That's my CRM. So we're kind of our team is at a point now, we'll do, I mean, 80 to $100 million in business this year. And so we can't be managing all that data anymore ourselves. We're in the process of transitioning to a more sophisticated system.
Wow, that's quite a bit of real estate.
Yeah.
How many people
Yeah.
are on your team?
4 of us.
4 of you, and then do you have transaction coordinators, virtual assistants? Like, do you do all those tasks yourself, or is that managed?
We have 3 assistants.
Okay.
So we have one that does all the administrative work on the listing side, listing contracts, advertising, marketing, and so on. We have a second assistant who handles everything from contract to closing. And then we have a virtual assistant who helps manage our databases.
Nice. I actually like that you're doing that volume, and someone else is going to start managing the data. But if a newer agent who's looking at 9 to 12 million in volume, it's manageable. Like, I think a lot of times people get so hung up on what's the best CRM, and it's like, you know what? The easiest thing that you're going to use is going to be the most effective.
Yeah.
So it's refreshing to hear that that's what you're using, and you block off the time and you tackle it, and then you have the rest of the day for your client care, and then you finish the day, it sounds like, wrapping up, whether it's, some people will break it into, I'll do my calls for people I don't know that I'm trying to get to work with. Then I'm going to spend time with the people that I'm already in a transaction, and then I'm going to do some follow-up and some conversion. So I found you through Facebook. So you do have quite a Facebook presence, I have been able to see. So tell me a little bit about your online strategies and what you do.
That's a good question, and a timely question, Holly. If I can put in a little bit of a plug, we're actually currently looking for someone to help manage our social media and online presence.
Okay,
So if
so
you know
that
of
person
anyone,
could be from anywhere, right? They could do that
that's right.
remotely. So this is timely then, because this will be seen by quite a few people.
Yeah.
And so you never know. So you're looking to outsource that, because it
We're
sounds
working.
like. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's honestly, we work in a retirement community. 96 to 97% of our transactions are in the villages. And so some of the more traditional advertising and media works better here than in other places. We spend a considerable amount of money on the newspaper, for example, whereas that would not work outside the villages. But we have come to realize the importance of social media, and quite honestly, that is one area where we are lacking in terms of our presence.
Okay, so that's interesting. And what I've noticed since I moved to the villages in April, there is not a lot of inventory. And what I'm seeing is in the Facebook groups that I have joined, there's a lot of chatter on, people trying to find homes before they hit the market. And so I can see where the traditional, of course, I'm sure radio and print, are still pretty popular here. But it is interesting to see a lot of conversations coming up now about the market and about things through social media. So I think it's good that you guys are looking to get the help where it could benefit you. But I have seen you on Facebook, and I actually referred you to a friend up in Georgia. I'm waiting to hear. It was an agent, so I'm not sure if that connection made it through, but it was before you and I had ever even talked, and it was because I'd seen you on social media. So it is kind of interesting. You never know where business is going to come from.
Absolutely. I have people call me all the time and say, so and so referred me over to you. And I'm sitting there searching my database and like, I don't know that person, but that's great,
And that's a great thing to have. And it doesn't hurt that we are in the fastest growing, community area in the country. I've never seen anything like this. I've lived in Denver. I lived in Atlanta for 23 years. I have friends all across the country. So the volume here is pretty interesting, but it's also not easy to get either. There's a lot of competition, and I know you compete with the villages directly, and that's a complete anomaly for, you know, a big gigantic builder not to participate in the MLS. So I know that you still, even though you do so much, I know that it's got to be extremely competitive. So any like little strategies that you do for getting listings in the villages, like farming, or is it still mostly referral, or what are your strategies for that in a competitive area?
Yeah. So what we've done, since we have the advantage of having a team, is we've divided up how we go after leads. Each one of us kind of specializes in a different area. So we do work on expired listings. We get a lot of those.
Nice.
Uh, when I was first getting started, I worked a lot with for sale by owners. And I was able, I mean, I had been in the business, you know, 2 weeks when I got my first listing.
Wow.
And was able to beat out the competition myself, because we, you know, we provided a better service than anyone else. And I focused, you know, I really, really focused on the relationship rather than trying to get the listing. My goal was to build trust with the person.
Nice.
And so when I was going on these for sale by owner appointments, I focused on helping them get their house sold, whether or not they signed a listing agreement with me. So the first couple transactions I did, I brought a buyer. There was one transaction where I didn't even get paid. And that seller went on to refer me to all their neighbors, and I got a bunch of listings on that street, you know. So it really boils down to doing the right thing. And so going back to the team thing, you know, we focus on expired, we do some expired listings, we do some for sale by owner, but then we're kind of working on really fortifying the referral leads that are coming in. I think that's going to be probably about 40-50% of our team volume this year is referrals.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
And you yourself, what has your volume been as part of the team since you started?
Yeah, I closed about 60 transactions last year.
Wow.
That was my first year. I've already passed that this year, so I'm hoping to be at about 140 by the time I reach my 2-year mark.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So systems are really important. I know I've spoken to people before, you know, they'll do maybe 10 deals or something, and they're like, okay, I want to go to 30. But 30 as a solo agent looks very different than 10, you know.
Yes.
So important, you know, I think, to have that transaction coordinator, virtual assistants if you don't have a full assistant, but you can't manage, you know, 10 to 30. There's such a learning curve. And like you said, if it's really going to be about taking care of that client and talking to your clients regularly, you really don't want to be following a bunch of tasks around.
Yeah.
So.
Focus on your high output activities. And I have a rule. I started this back when I owned my company and I was outsourcing things. If someone can do whatever task it is you're looking to get done, if they can do it 80% as well as you, give it to them. Like, I'm a perfectionist by nature, so that's difficult for me to say and even more difficult to put into practice. But that has been a huge growth factor for me personally and for our team. Is, you know, as soon as we can hire someone to do it, we hire them.
That's awesome. And I love that mindset, because so many people do take on, well, I do it so well. Although that's really, you know, creating a flyer and stuff, that's not the expertise that our clients are looking at from us, you know.
Right.
And it's just kind of getting that shift, because I think a lot of times we get comfortable in those tasks. We're not as comfortable as going on appointments and meeting people and talking to people if you haven't come from sales in the past.
Yeah.
Which I struggled with big time, because I came from
Yeah.
a management position, and, you know, I just told people what to do and then sat in my office. You know, it was just so different than getting into sales. So
Yeah.
it's completely different. It sounds like you already had that mindset, which really helped you.
Yeah.
So,
You gotta focus on what people are hiring you to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what's one thing that you just absolutely love about your transition into real estate?
I love working with people. I mean, I was homeschooled, and so I finished high school really quickly. I got my GED when I was 15, had a college
Wow.
degree by the time I was 17, and I started work as a draftsman working for an architect, thinking I would eventually go the home builder route like my father, and I hated it. I hated sitting behind the desk drawing and designing all day. I wanted to be out working with people. And so I eventually got into education and linguistics and started my own company. But I think that was one of the main draws and one of the reasons that I was able to do very, very well with real estate is I like working with people.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, there's just a lot of satisfaction in it for me.
Yeah. Do you have a good, with that amount of volume, do you feel that you have a nice balance between your personal life and your work life? How are you able to kind of separate the
It's always a challenge. I believe there is no such thing as a work-life balance. And that's the reason we talk about it so much. We're trying to figure it out. And for everyone, it's a little different. So I do have a period of time every evening that I block off to be with my wife and kids. I literally shut my phone off for about 2.5 hours a day. And then a little bit in the morning as well. I have my personal time. But it's a challenge, you know. I have friends who have told me I work too much and that I need to spend more time with my family. But then when I look at what they do, you know, they work 40 hours a week, they come home and their idea of family time is sitting on the couch, drinking a beer, yelling at their kids to do their homework, you
right?
know. But when I'm present, I'm 100% there, you know. So I just try to be 100% no matter where I am.
I love that.
Yeah.
Do you listen to Simon Sinek at all?
I love Simon.
Okay, I just had a feeling.
Yeah.
Some of the things you said, I just absolutely adore him. And I'm actually not even sure if he's the one that talked about the work-life balance, but it was him or someone that said, like you said, we're always talking about it, and they're really, I don't think it's work-life balance. I think it was him. He said, you just want to be happy. Like, do the
Yes.
things that make you happy. And that might be, 12 hours for somebody and then, 4 hours with their kids or all day Sunday off. And so I do really like that you said that. And I think that's the important thing. Like, what makes you happy? I
Mhm.
don't think there is
A
such a thing as balance.
I think a lot of people fall into the trap of thinking that something that works for another person should also work for them. Like you said, taking the weekends off might work for one agent. Another agent might go crazy knowing that, you know, they could be producing more business on Saturday and Sunday. There are weeks when I take Monday off or Tuesday off or Friday off, you know. I think the important thing is just finding a balance and really paying attention to signs of burnout. You definitely don't want to get burned out. There's a Chinese proverb. It says something like a rested field produces a ripe harvest. You know, so
Yes,
if you're not resting, your harvest is going to go down, not up.
I like
So
that.
that is important. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, as we wrap up here, are there any other little tips of wisdom that you would like to give? Maybe somebody that's newly starting out for encouragement, um, maybe something that clicked, for you that you had wished had clicked sooner, or just any, everybody's always looking for what's that one little nugget. So maybe just a little something you could share.
I love golden nuggets. Um, I think two things would be one, focus on input, not output.
I love that.
You don't want to be too obsessed over how much you're selling. Um, I think success is a direct result of how many phone calls you make, especially early in your real estate career. And so if you focus on the number of phone calls, I think Tom Ferry has a thing that he says where it's like phone calls equals appointments equals contracts equals closings equals income, something like that.
Yeah, I love that.
So focus on input. Don't be so much concerned about the output because the output will follow. Um, and then another big one that no one really talks about is getting your finances in order.
Mm,
Um, as a business owner, it's imperative that you have a plan, whether that means working with a financial planner, a CPA to help you plan for retirement and minimize your tax liability. because you could be making a lot of money, but also paying a lot in taxes. So those would be kind of my two pieces of advice to things that I wish I had learned more quickly.
I love that. And you're right, the financial piece. Brian Buffini, talks in one of his talks about how you can win all these awards, but you can't take them out of an ATM. It's like,
That's
it
right.
doesn't really matter what you earn, it matters what you keep. So that's
Yeah.
a great reminder. And I'm so glad that you brought that up, because we're coming into fourth quarter planning, and this is a great time to do the reflection on what worked this year and what is 2022 going to look like. So I really appreciate your time today, Guy. Guy services the villages and the surrounding areas, and all his contact information will be attached to this. So definitely reach out if you have anybody coming to the villages. And I'm thrilled to have a referral source here, which is great, because now that I've moved here, a lot of people come visit and then they're like, oh my gosh, maybe I want to live here.
Yeah.
It is a fun place for sure. So I really appreciate your time today, and I look forward to connecting with you more in the future.
All right. Thanks, Holly. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Okay.